This is the Other 22 Hours podcast.
Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of the Other 22 Hours podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Shafer-Haiss.
And I'm your other host, Michaela Anne. And this is near the end of our second year. Very happy to still be here, no sign of stopping, and really thankful that you are here with us.
For those of you that are returning listeners, we have a few quick asks before we jump into today's episode. It takes a lot to produce even a small show like ours. And so any of these actions goes a long way in keeping this show going and allowing us to get more guests and share more ideas back with you guys. So the quickest and easiest, please just take a second to do it right now, would be to subscribe on whatever you're listening on or watching at the moment. What it does is it allows people that are just browsing through to know that our show is worth 45 minutes of their time. And if you'd like to go a step further, chances are you heard about this show via word of mouth. If you have a favorite episode, whether it's this one or one of the 83 other episodes, just take a second to share that favorite episode with somebody that doesn't know what we do. Chances are you heard about it on social media or just in conversation with a friend. However you heard about it, just take your favorite episode and pay it forward. Lastly, if you know that you are a big fan of this show, we encourage you to check out our Patreon. Like I said, it takes a lot of resources to produce this show, and so any little bit helps. And for the price of a mediocre cup of coffee a month, you can have access to everything that we're developing and growing and providing over there. It's constantly changing, and the idea is to just provide an outlet and a community to go deeper into the things that we talk about in this show. If that interests you, there's a link below in the show notes.
And one of the things we really pride ourselves on this podcast is that we are not music journalists. We are musicians ourselves. So we feel like we're offering something a little bit different. We don't consider them interviews. We consider them conversations. Almost as if we are inviting some people over to have dinner and sitting around the dining room table, talking about the very honest realities of what it is to build a lifelong career around your art.
And what it is to live in that area is to live in the constant unknown and the things that are outside of our control. And so we focus on what we deem is within our control, being our headspace, our routines and tools, and our creativity in general. And from the start, our mission statement has been to ask the question, what do you do to create sustainability in your life so you can sustain your creativity? Today, we got to ask that question of Becca Stevens.
Becca Stevens is a 2-time Grammy-nominated, incredible singer, songwriter, instrumentalist, blending the genres of jazz, pop, and folk. She is such a singular artist. We've known Becca for a very long time. I think I met Becca when I was 19 years old, starting at the New School. And my memory of Becca was that she was just like, I wouldn't even say I was intimidated by her because she's one of the kindest. She was always so funny and welcoming and just vibrant and insanely talented. So when I was 19, moving to New York City for the first time, entering jazz school, I felt very tiny. And she was just this big, talented, beautiful presence that was like, come on, it's okay. And she's gone on to do incredible things as a musician.
Yeah, on top of those Grammy nominations, she's collaborated closely with the likes of David Crosby, Jacob Collier, Brad Mehldau, Travis Sullivan's Bjorkestra, in which she was Bjork, Timo Andres, Michael McDonald, Snarky Puppy. The list goes on and on. She just recently made her Broadway debut in Illinoise, which was based on Sufjan Stevens' album of the same title. Just an incredible person and an incredible artist. Obviously, so much output.
I just have to interrupt because I loved the way, and we need to keep this in the episode, the way you said Timo Andres. I think it's Timo Anders. I've met Timo.
Well,
But we're going to have both in here just in case to do our due diligence.
And that's where the power of doing the final quality control comes through. So with that, we have touched on, I'll call it artistic parenthood, quite often in this show. I don't think we've ever touched on it at the level that we did in this episode. It's a remarkably single-focused conversation that has so many facets and so much intricacy and nuance throughout the whole episode. But we really go deep. So if you've been wondering how it's possible to create art and more importantly, create a career around your art while also creating a family, this is the spot for you.
Yeah. Without further ado, here is our conversation with Becca Stevens. Oh man, it's so good to see you. I think it's probably been like 15, 20 years. Because aren't we all like still 25?
Yeah. People ask me when I was at the New School and I'm like, it's a big head scratcher.
Yeah.
So.
And we're all like a year or two apart, I think, but we all started like almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, it hurts.
That's crazy.
I definitely started 20 years ago. That hurts.
I started in 2003, so more than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Crazy.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I've been like following your journey peripherally since we knew each other in school. I've been aware of what you've been doing over the past 15, 20 years. Then really started noticing what you were sharing in the past few years with becoming a mom, losing your mom, all these things that felt relatable to my life as well. And also just like the way that you've been sharing very honestly about what the reality is of being a working mother and a very high level achieving musician. So there's so many things I want to talk to you about. Just to start off, how are you feeling today?
What a sweet question for a podcast. Rested, which is rare. I just got back from a tour about 5 days ago where I was in a different country every day, traveling alone with my infant daughter. And it was unbelievably exhausting. But the nice thing about coming home from Europe is that the jet lag kind of works in your favor. The last 3 nights I've passed out when putting my girls to sleep at 8 o'clock and then slept until they wake up at 6, including nursing through the night, which is a whole other thing. Like, I don't actually know what it feels like to sleep through the night, but getting that much rest for 3 nights in a row, I feel like jet fuel superpowers of rest right now.
Yeah, amazing. It is pretty incredible. Like when you're in that state of mind and in that period of life, like how little sleep it actually takes to
feel good.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, that's so true. And you're just like, what do I do with all this energy?
Yeah.
You're like, I slept 4 hours straight. I can do anything.
The first time we brought our daughter to Europe, we flew to Scotland, and it was, a red eye, and we barely slept on the way there. And so we were really tired, and we more or less went to sleep when she went to sleep. We kept her up until like her normal bedtime, Scottish time. We slept until like
8 or 9
in the morning, and she was still asleep. And I just remember like laying in bed and there was sun coming through the window in the Airbnb, and I was like, this is the greatest morning of my life. And we just sat there just blissed out for like an hour until she woke up.
It's like a fairy tale. What a difference some sleep makes. It changes your lenses completely.
I feel like when we first had our daughter is 3, almost 3.5, and I'm 7 months pregnant right now.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
I wouldn't have known from the angle that I'm looking at you.
Yeah, it's if I stand up, I've got a beach ball in here. But I watched your story highlight of touring solo in Europe with your 8-month-old. And I love it because that's the whole premise of this podcast and like our kind of like ethos, or especially my ethos and my approach to my career of just not creating a farce and being really vulnerable and honest. And when you're posting like 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 6 a.m., like I'm like, oh my God. And I remember when we first had Georgia, the first couple weeks, we were cocky. We were like, oh, sleep deprivation. We've been training for this for years as touring musicians. And then like a month went by and we were like, oh, but the difference is you don't get any break. Never mind.
Yeah, it doesn't end. It's forever.
Yeah.
You don't get to recover. So
Yeah, it's true.
So you're feeling good today because you got a solid night of sleep, waking up every few hours.
It's like a dance. I don't know if you guys do the co-sleeping thing, but I don't know how people survive without it. She goes to sleep in a little side sleeper. I'm just going to go into full detail about this because the podcast is called The Other 22 Hours.
Yep.
So
let's go.
She goes to sleep in a side sleeper next to our bed, and then she wakes up for the first time. And if I'm already in bed, I just kind of roll her in and I make like a kickstand with my arm. And it's so beautiful because then instead of me having to go to another room and sit in a chair and get fully awake, like turn a light on, whatever, I'm just letting her nurse. We doze back to sleep. And then when she wakes up again 3 hours later, we do this kind of dance flip thing where I flip her to the other side and then she nurses and we fall back asleep. So it's definitely disturbed sleep, but it's also so much more functional, I think, than if I was going to another room every 3 hours. She's 8 months now. Like you said, probably soon we're going to start her in the crib in her sister's room, her cry for longer stretches, which, as you guys both know, is like the most excruciating.
Yeah.
Yep. I was thinking about that just last night, actually, trying to fall asleep. I had a gig, which is rare for me. I rarely leave my studio. So like the after gig, like adrenaline is like is very real for me and very strong. And so I was like lying in bed trying to fall asleep. I just had a visceral memory of like that dread, hearing a kid cry like in the middle. And I did, like, it wakes me up like immediately. Our kid can cough in the other room and I'm like, I'm awake. Like, let's do it. But like I used to get like this pit in my stomach and I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to get that this time, the second time around, because I know it passes. But yeah, it's such a whole thing. Great. While you were traveling with your infant, did you co-sleep all night kind of thing?
We had arranged cribs at the hotels and at the venues too. You know, her sleep schedule was so thrown off that I didn't know exactly when she was going to want a nap and for how long when we got there. It worked out really well, I have to say. Like, she was amazing. And then I hired babysitters in each city that we went to. So I did the traveling alone. And then I would arrive there and meet a caretaker that I'd known before or somebody that was highly recommended. For example, in Saint Germain, a friend of mine came and she took a nap in the stroller during the sound check. It was like perfectly timed. And then she took a nap in the crib during the gig, which was from like 10 to 11:30 p.m. And then I took her back to the hotel, put her in the crib at the hotel. She slept there for like 3, 4, maybe 5 hours and then started crying and I brought her into the bed. For me right now, it's like I'm using all of the things. And then sometimes she sleeps in the carrier on my front and sometimes she sleeps in the carrier on my back, you know? Just depends where we are and what we're doing. And I think that's one of the strengths of traveling with a baby at this age, which, to be honest, a month from now, it's going to be completely different because she'll want to walk around.
Yeah. This is the stuff I find so helpful because I was trying to figure out, like, through the first baby and like reaching out to every other touring mom I knew of, how do you do this? Do you take a pack and play? Is it easier to just arrange for it? Like, there's all those logistical things that are super helpful to know. And it's really helpful to see women who are sharing how to do it, because it's like watching your reel where you were like, I maybe wouldn't do this where I'm traveling alone, where I don't have someone with me.
I would not.
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a really good experience, but there's no reason for me to ever do that again. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's such a balance, right? You're like a businesswoman as well. So you're trying to balance making enough of a profit that it feels worth it versus also making sure that you feel comfortable and taken care of, because that also impacts your performances. I'm curious how all of these kind of personal life changes have impacted your relationship to your writing and your performing, because also your brain changes as you grow a baby, birth a baby, take care of a baby. Even just hearing you talk about nap times and windows, you're constantly like running math and doing all of this stuff and like, oh shit, now I got to pump. There's so many other things now that is taking up so much space in your brain. Finally, there are studies coming out that are proving and showing that they actually are studying mothers' brains, that they completely change and rearrange, which is comforting to know when you're like, what the fuck happened to my brain?
And fathers too, I think.
Totally, yes.
In a different way, but yes, completely. And just as we were starting this podcast, I was like, oh, I need to pump. So it was, I chuckled when you said that. So both my girls are in daycare right now. And you mentioned the record that came out in August. It's called Maple to Paper. And there's a song on there called Payin' to Be Apart, which I wrote on a day not unlike today. I think it was at this time of year where I'm like, was looking out this exact window at the beautiful rainbow foliage. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's like a little sliver of my mirror behind me, but I can see red and orange and yellow and green and brown and bright blue in the sky, and sitting here with an achy heart because I'm like, what I really want to be doing this moment is walking hand in hand with my girl outside and pointing at this and talking about it and enjoying each other's company. You know, two things can be true. I also have this lifelong passion of self-expression through art. That is a part of me to be nurtured in order for me to be a fulfilled and happy person. There's this thing that happens when you have two things coexisting. You have to spend money in order to have somebody else be with your kids so that you can work. And then this is me finally answering your question. It makes the time when you're apart, or for me it does, the time when I'm apart from her and I'm working, it makes it more efficient because I'm like, I'm not going to mess around with this. And then if I want to rest, I am really deliberate about that too. I'm like, I'm going to take one mental health rest day, and then tomorrow I'm back to work. And when I'm back to work, I'm not doing as much, on records prior. I did a lot of over-obsessing, experimenting in directions where my instinct was telling me, maybe, no, this is not the best way to go. But now I'm like getting really good at listening to my instincts and my muse and figuring out when are the moments where that's like resonating and I'm serving the song. And if that's not happening, then it's wasted time that I could be spending with my children.
I feel that no time for BS at all. And the intentionality is really welcomed from my perspective. When we first started our parenthood journey, I definitely felt like a lot of anxiety, a lot of resentment, not like towards my kid, but towards the situation and towards like the new reality as I was getting adjusted to it. But now I can't see any other way. It's amazing that it takes like another human being that you are responsible for to create that paradigm. But it's like, why waste your time on things that are not absolutely lighting you up and absolutely serving like what you're going for? I try to think of what I did before being a parent. I felt really busy, but like, what did I do? What was I filling my time with?
One of the reasons I feel these conversations are important, it feels really prevalent this week because sometimes I feel like, am I annoying people that I just like talk about motherhood and parenthood, but like obviously focused on motherhood? I do think the conversation needs to include fathers and all, especially today's fathers who are, everything says they spend like 60% more time with their children than previous generations. Parenthood in general and building families, especially in industries like the music industry, that doesn't really create space for it or honor it. Another thing that I saw you say on Instagram was like this kind of subconscious judgment. You feel like you've even been guilty of judging someone for, especially women, for becoming a mom. And every time I think, am I beating a dead horse? Are people sick of hearing me talk about this? Then I'll have a conversation this week and my friend might listen to this podcast and that's okay. I'll tell her that I mentioned it. But when she was talking about if her and her partner were considering having kids, she was like, the honest reality is we're considering which one of us would be willing to sacrifice our career because let's be honest, you can't really have a career and be a mom. And I was like, hello? What do I chop liver? Like I've had that experience so many times. I've like been at festivals and been sitting at a festival and somebody says that at the table and I'm like, hello, are we not playing the same festival? Like, am I also not working? And that's not a reflection of those individuals. It's just like such a deeply ingrained narrative.
Stigma. And it makes perfect sense that she would have come to that conclusion because there's not enough of it being prevalent shown around us. When I was in my 20s and even 30s, like you mentioned earlier, I was looking everywhere for role models in this world of people who were both working and having children. And it was really hard to find both things actively happening, particularly with women, with mothers. And so I would see women who were really crushing it, who had decided not to have children. And it's easy to tell your brain like, oh, wow, they're doing great because they never had that interruption of uprooting everything. And then I would see people who decided to become mothers and took like years off from their career or just didn't come back. And also, that's a beautiful thing. Like, if that's what you choose to do, like I've had moments where I've thought, man, that would be nice. But it was really hard to find people who are doing both. I think it's a little easier to see it now. Like more people are making that effort now. But that does not mean that it's easy. On the contrary, it's at times like impossibly hard. You heard me say, I'm never going out without bringing someone again. That takes a huge hit on the profit of a tour. We're in a world now post-pandemic where we have all figured out other ways to make money other than touring. So I think touring, at least in my life, is less about like, this is the only way that I make money to support my career, and more like, this is something I have to do when I put out an album and I just get through it, which is the sad truth. But you talked about shame, and this is another issue that I've thought a lot about. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine too here in Princeton, and she was saying that she feels like there's two camps of working moms. There's the musician mom who literally pretends like they never had a kid multiple times. I've seen people who have kids and they just don't post about it. They don't talk about it. Some of their even close acquaintances don't even know that they have children.
Yep.
And I've heard stories from those people where they ended up telling someone that they worked with, they like did a late show, Collier or something like that. And afterwards, the artist they were playing with was like, all right, should we go grab a drink? And she was like, oh, I need to get back to the hotel room because my husband is there with the baby. And he was like, baby? I wouldn't have called you if I knew that you had a baby. And she was like, yeah. Like he thought he was being respectful by saying, oh, I would have given you a space if I'd known you had a 3-month-old. And she was like, yeah, that's why I didn't tell you. So that's like the one camp is you have people that are like keeping it private so that they're not losing gigs. And then I think opposite extreme is people who are taking everything on, trying not to make there be any sort of blip in the radar of their work, taking on just as much and then acting like there's nothing to see here. I'm able to do this just as well as my male counterparts, plus having this whole other job. It doesn't make me any weaker and I can do all the same things. There's nothing to see here. As I was like posting through that tour on the story, it wasn't my intention to make a tour blog, but then as it was happening, I was getting all this feedback from people being like, thank you. I needed to see this. We need to talk about this. I hope that in that blog, it showed something in between the two or something else where it's like, no, there is something to see here. There are things here that shouldn't be impossibly hard as they are. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I've always been in the camp of being honest about how hard things are does not mean that you're complaining. And also, why do we inherently think hard is bad? Like I tell this story a million times. When I got pregnant, I told my booking agent and he was like, oh no, this is going to be so hard. We don't work together anymore. It was like a terrible experience. I still get really angry about it because it was so violating, to be honest. And I was like, this is hard. Being a musician is hard. Touring the world is hard. Having children is hard. But why is that bad? We can share the struggle and what feels like a hardship, and also like to educate and be like, there are ways that this could be more supportive and we could create systems or cultural shifts that would make these things easier. But also like hard is not bad.
Intensely moving and powerful art comes from hardship. Why wouldn't you want to hear from people who just started a family? Why wouldn't you want to hear art that comes from that place? And why wouldn't you want to support these people being able to come and perform and pursue their passions during the hardest period of their life, where their life is void of being able to access those passions? And why wouldn't you want children of those people to be able to see their parents fulfilled? It makes everyone happier. So when you get questions like on this recent tour, I heard kickles coming back of people being like, why is she doing that? Both in a judgmental way and also in like a, why would she put herself through that? It makes sense that people wouldn't understand, but I also am like, why not?
Yeah.
My thing in my experience is I never hear that. And I never hear people say that about dads. If anything, in my experience, if I was to generalize everything, I've gotten more respect since becoming a parent. Totally. It's like, oh, well, you have a family to support, all of that. And it clicked to me earlier this week listening to The Daily, and they were interviewing people younger than us, early 20s, out of college, working class people. And it struck me how all of the men were talking about the deep responsibility they felt to be able to provide for their family. And it made me just think about this general stigma in our culture and our society of the woman being the breadwinner. It's like, why not normalize a woman being the breadwinner? If it was a normalized thing and you like subconsciously accepted in the way that it is for men to be the breadwinner, then you guys being out there and touring with a kid, there would be no question. It's like, this is what you need to do. You are working, you are providing for your family. And there's nothing different with you guys doing it than with me doing that. Like Michaela, we've been together for 17 years. 80% of those years, Michaela is the breadwinner. She makes more than me. She supports our family, all of that. Speaking to the men listening to this, that doesn't emasculate me. It doesn't make my work less. It doesn't make my value less. It's like we are in this together as a partnership. It kind of clicked to me thinking about the reception that we have each received in entering parenthood. If it was normalized for you guys to be the ones, the breadwinner in this period of life.
That our households depended on our income.
Yeah.
Like your friend, the experience of the band leader being like, oh, I wouldn't have called you. But for a man, it would probably be like, oh, I should definitely call them because they probably need work because they need to provide for their family. The assumption that like women are somehow still just financially taken care of is weird to me.
Yeah.
I've definitely experienced that of like, wow, you're working so much. And I'm like, yeah, because I need to. But also, I think as an artist, like you said, especially in a time when your body and your life is like under this huge transformation, art and performing and doing the thing that we've done for so long in our adult life and even childhood for you, I know, like we want to do those things.
Yes. But also, it's okay if you don't. That is, for me, the big all-encompassing narrative is that I want people, especially mothers, to be able to do what they want with that sacred time. So if that is for a year to lay in bed and watch their baby grow and laugh and kick around and just really soak it up. If there is a passion during that time to write music and make an album and go on tour and bring your baby with you, and if you have the desire to stay with your baby and keep your baby by your side and feed it milk from your body, then that is the choice of that mother, and that's what's going to be best for that baby, because that's what is going to make that mother feel happy and fulfilled, and therefore the baby is going to be around that joy. And the big story here is that there should be support for whatever to happen. And right now you see, at least in this country, people going back to work before they want to because they have to. People unable to bring their babies. In my example, like there's no way for me to make a profit on tour. I either bring someone and lose money or I pay someone to watch her at home. These are the little pockets where I'm like, there should be funding for this. There's paid maternity and paternity leaves in other realms. Why in my field and in my country, like, why is this not supported?
I feel like the mentality is often, if you can't pay for it, then why are you doing it? Why do you have a child? Why are you touring? There's a million layers to the response to that. But I feel like that's the kind of blaming response that I see. And to childcare too. I was thinking about this the other day of just, we totally accept that public school is provided, or we actually don't totally accept because anyways, I won't go into the politics of living in Tennessee where public schools are completely under attack. But like that school, you have a place to send your kid to be educated for free from age 5 or 6 to 18. Those first 5 years, it's insane how much childcare costs. Like,
yeah, totally.
And this idea of if you can't afford it, then you shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, but the thing I need to bring up about the if you can't afford it, you shouldn't have done it. Like anybody that's been in a van, which is most people listening to this, or anybody that's driven across the country, this entire country is covered in corn.
Yeah.
And those farmers couldn't exist if it wasn't subsidized by the government. So if they couldn't afford it, why are they doing it?
The bigger conversation of here that there are people who don't want to have children and are pregnant and have to because they'll go to jail if they don't.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot.
Oh, yeah. There's so much wrong.
Lots to unpack here. No. The world would be a happier place if only people that wanted to have children were making children. And isn't that what we want, to make a better planet for all of us to live in?
That's not what everybody wants. So you grew up in a musical family. Both of your parents were musicians.
That's right.
And you had a family band and like started touring very young in your family band and musical theater productions.
And I doubt we were making a profit then either.
Can you talk about like what you saw exampled from your parents and like how that kind of informed your ideas about having a family and being an artist as a career path?
I'm the youngest of 3, so I was born into the Tune Mammals. Like they were already gigging. You can find our music on Spotify. Both our albums are there. Tune Mammals. And we had normal childhood. We were in school and stuff like that. But on the weekends, especially in the summer, we would go and play festivals and stuff, like children's music festivals. And every once in a while, we'd take a flight to California or somewhere to do like premiere a symphony of my dad's or do a musical that my dad wrote. There were several that sometimes we would do. Like the first act is Boyd's Shadow, and then the second act is like a set of music from the Tune Mammals. And Boyd's Shadow was also made into a 45-minute long movie that won the Parents' Choice Award in North Carolina.
Amazing.
So we were like a fairly active musical family. And my memory of it was I loved being on stage. I really loved taking on the theatrical side of things. I really loved performing in front of people. And I also remember being very serious. It wasn't a time to joke around. And my sister and brother and I would be like making jokes, and my dad would be like, focus, we have to get through this. But I don't remember resenting it ever. I don't remember feeling held back by it. In fact, looking back, I'm like really grateful that I had such a rich musical upbringing, because that has been a huge part of why I've never felt like guilty during the periods where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go for this period of time where I'm not necessarily making a huge profit. It's like, okay, well, if I can do it right now, I'm going to go for it. I think it would have been harder for me if I'd come up in a family where it's like, you're being told there's this narrative that the arts is, you're wasting your time and you should do something that is, you know, which could also be true. No, but it was always like very supported in my household. That said, it's so funny. I think you asked how it's like affected my perception of it as a mother. For some reason, I haven't tried to foster that or recreate it yet. And I think that's because I don't see, so Willamea is my 2.5-year-old. I don't see her like wanting it. I don't want to put anything on her that she's not seeking for herself. I do see her gravitating towards visual art, and so I try to make a space for that whenever I can. I see it as a way that she processes her feelings and has a sense of freedom and expression, and I think that that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Our daughter is the same way. She
Really?
Yeah, she loves to paint. She'll come in the studio and hit some drums or play the piano, and she was really into harmonica for a minute, but we don't push any of that on her. If she shows interest, we'll open more doors. She's 3. She could absolutely love it one day and want to do nothing but that. And the next day she's like, I hate that. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But kind of across the board, visual art is like a thing that she loves.
She's not super into singing. Like, she sings sometimes, but like she likes to listen to music. She does not let me sing at all. She will ask to listen to my record, and she knows which ones by name. She'll be like, can you put on Mom's old record? Or I want to hear Mom's new music. And she's very specific. But if I start singing along ever, she gets so mad. She's like,
interesting.
Yesterday, we are on a loop where we only listen to Pink Pony Club and Always Be My Baby by Mariah Carey. We listened to it as like a 20-minute drive home, and it's like those songs back to back to back to back to back. And I would start singing along. No, Mom. But I was like, Georgia, don't you like to sing? It feels so good to sing. And she was like, no, only on stage. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'll be curious to see what they're like when they're older.
I remember Gretchen Parlato, a friend of mine, a superhero, saying something similar about her son Marley, that if she was singing children's songs, happy children's songs, lighthearted stuff, it was fine. But as soon as she went into a heavier, more serious zone or like her own music, he would start crying and be like, no. It was like too intense.
Yeah. I wonder what the psychology is behind that. If it is like their emotional perception, like when you actually like step into that, or if it's some kind of relation between you singing and performing is something that
takes you away.
It takes you away. And it also shows you in a different way. It's a different version of ourselves. And this sort of brings it back to our conversation of you, Michaela, as the mother, but then there's also this other version of you that's very powerful, and it's you, Michaela, as the performer and as the artist. And I think that can be like sort of off-putting and scary to see even as a little kid. And maybe that's the source of our problem as a society, is that it's uncomfortable for us to see a woman be anything other than her mama self.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does your older daughter respond to you being on stage, like seeing you on stage?
She came and saw me perform in Illinoise, this Broadway musical that I did for 2 months, as Sufjan Stevens music with like dance, and it was incredible. And she sat up in the high balcony and she was watching, you know, like a deer in headlights, just, oh my gosh, this is an incredible thing. Mommy's wearing butterfly wings and like singing to all these people. And then afterwards, she was really clingy and wanted to be in my arms, and I'm talking to people outside and stuff, and she was like really clingy and holding on to me tightly, which is not totally her vibe. And then when it was time to go, her dad had to like pull her away because she was like, no. Like she felt, I think we're on to something here with this like feeling that I'd been taken away from her in some way because all these other people were sharing my energy. Like it wasn't just for her. It was for like however many thousands of people fit in that room. Like everyone was sharing. And that's an intense thing for a 2-year-old to share at that level.
I wonder if it's something that as we get older, you know, whether it's your late teens or in your 20s or 30s or whatever, it's like when you start to just see your parents as other individuals, you know, rather than like this mysterious, all-encompassing, magical world. I wonder if it's like kind of the first view into that. You know what I mean? Without being, oh, wow, my mom is like another person, just like all these other people that I see, like, that's my mom. Because I don't think Georgia gets super clingy with me after she's seen me on stage.
No, and I was thinking about, because she hasn't seen us on stage a ton, but she came to a festival in September, and that was like the first time in a while that she had seen me on stage where she like was running around and sometimes watching when I was playing. And I remember she like ran to me afterwards and would be clinging to me and hanging on me and stuff.
Would be running around on stage like during sound check.
Yeah, she really liked to be on stage. So maybe that's a thing. Yeah. Not singing or anything, just being on stage.
In this light, I have a question for you guys. When Georgia comes home from, I don't know, is she in daycare right now? Okay. When she comes home from daycare, do you notice a difference in how her crying or meltdowns or the like 5 p.m. blues, do you notice a difference between mommy and daddy? I'm curious.
Not like easily identifiable, for sure.
You guys?
Definitely. And I've seen studies on this that for whatever reason, mommy, well, I think she does it with both of us, but especially with me, she'll just be like, the second she sees me, she'll be like, because it's
just unload.
It's the safe place.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, daddy's her safe place too. So I don't know what that's about. There's like a fussy thing that happens that's particularly high with mommy.
She's pretty clingy with me at bedtime. Like if we're both home, I always have to do bedtime. And it's very hard for me to get out of the room. Aaron, we've talked about this with other parents where the dads are like, yeah, bedtime is fast for us. And I was like, yeah, that's not because you're doing it better. It's because the children are different with their mom.
Yeah. Yeah, but as far as like coming home, whoever goes and gets her and brings her home, the other person is also home, just working. You know, I'll either be in the studio or Michaela will be in her office. I noticed around 5 o'clock, she just gets like really antsy and impatient to see whichever parent is working. She'll come and like knock on the door behind us. As soon as she comes home, she gets out of the car and knocks on my studio door and like wants to come in and we hang out for a minute. And then same thing if I'm the one that brings her home. She wants to just go and say hi. Around 5 o'clock, she's like, yeah, okay, cool. We're done with this. Yet? We're done with this thing, right?
She does that a lot. Are you done working yet?
Yeah.
Oh
my gosh.
Your husband is also a musician and now in school, but he's a violist, is that right? And a composer.
Yes.
How has it been for you guys being both self-employed musicians, creatives, where you have to like do so much prioritizing of your own work, working together and balancing each other's time and priorities, bringing children into the mix?
I'm not ashamed to say that we had a couples counseling appointment this morning, which I believe in everybody doing, whether they're having hard times or not. And one of the key takeaways from our session this morning was that we are going to get a calendar dry erase board and put it on the fridge and have a weekly Sunday check-in where we put in like key events for the week, so that we are aware of what each other are doing, which sounds obvious, but it's absolutely not.
Yep.
Like yesterday, I asked him 3 times, or day before yesterday, I asked him 3 times, what are you doing tomorrow? And he was like, Becca, I'm playing at town hall. Like just this big deal. I'm playing at town hall. Can you get this programmed in your brain? So like getting on each other's radar for what we're doing and then also finding time for each other, which is nearly impossible during especially like the first couple of years of parenthood. You really have to schedule it. You have to not pass out at 8 p.m. when you're putting the kids to bed and actually like maybe set an alarm and be like, okay, we're watching a TV show together as long as we can stay awake. Also, just there's the logistical thing too of when you get together and go through the schedule, you realize, oh, we're both working during pickup on Thursday. So either somebody has to cancel something or we have to find someone else to pick them up. Scheduling becomes so important.
Yeah, it's like the least sexy stuff that you have to like get in order to make a room for any connection. It's like we need to have actual meetings.
Yeah. Matt, I will say we share calendars with each other. So we like generally have a good idea of what the other person's doing, at least like in the immediate days.
It's not enough for us.
Yeah.
There's still times though where we're like, didn't you look in our calendar? And like, no, I didn't see it.
Yeah, for sure. I will say like we dated for like 8 years before we got married. We were together for like 14 years before we had a kid.
Yeah.
And sharing calendars was like a big step in our relationship.
Yeah,
after
we did
14
not
years.
share calendars until we had a kid.
It was like, oh, we're going to do this. Are we ready to be this serious? We're married 14 years together. We have a kid. Like, this is a big step.
Because also, Aaron is a Virgo, if astrology is anything you're aware of. He's very organized and everything has its place and systems. And I am
Because clutter just like fogs my brain so quickly.
Even just thinking about it, your thoughts went away.
Yeah, exactly. I feel claustrophobic. That's what it is. For some reason that word.
And I am a Gemini.
Me too.
Oh, nice.
And
Wait,
so is my husband.
when's your birthday? Because I feel like, do we have...
June 14th.
Okay. And May 21st. But I feel like I remember that you were a Gemini now that you said
You're
that.
like barely a Gemini.
Yes.
You're almost
Yeah.
a Taurus.
Which I say makes me even more confusing because I have like the split personalities of Gemini, but I'm on the cusp of Taurus. So I have like stubborn anyways. But I'm a little more chaotic than Aaron is. So he was particularly nervous. Like, what is your calendar going to do to my calendar? So now I have a lot of calendars that I just don't share with him that are
likewise.
my...
Anybody listening to share calendars, that's the key. And if you use Apple calendars, I don't know if it's for Google, but if you use Apple calendars, you can change the color of somebody else's calendar without it changing for them. So I've just made Michaela's all like nice pastel colors that kind of disappear.
I've done that too. Nate's are like a translucent gray.
So it's there, but it doesn't like grab your attention.
So that's why you don't know that he's playing at town hall.
What bothers me is that if his stuff goes in the calendar first and then I add something at the same time as his, mine are half as wide. His take up the full space because they went there first, and then mine are like this little purple sliver within it.
Oh my
that's
God.
not fun.
We could go deep on the psychology of that.
The competition.
Oh, there is like this subliminal, like, I got to put this in the calendar. I got to claim my time. And it's like, we don't need more to keep score on. Like, we're all in this together.
Yeah, we definitely have to check each other of like, we both work a lot, but we don't have to be even about the time we work. I think about this, he doesn't really tour anymore. So like he's home, but I'll go on tour. And so I'm like, I was just gone for 3 weeks. I should probably pick up some more slack when I'm home and like not have my full like work schedule. Anyways, it's a constant juggling because monkey brain can take over and be like, but I don't have enough time.
The keeping tabs never leads to anything good for the team. But it's so tempting.
And then, I mean, as I would assume that you guys experience too, it's like, with young children, it's all phases anyway. So you finally get all these logistics worked out. You get something that kind of works, and then everything changes. It is a year older. There's more activities. There's more things that they need to be a part of. And so like what worked last year doesn't work. And you're just like, oh, cool, great. Yeah. We were just like getting into this flow
That
of things.
routine was really feeling good and now it doesn't work anymore type of thing.
That's the beauty of it too, though, right? That everything is long game. So that's also why keeping tabs is not your best interest, because the whole point of marriage is that you're like, okay, I'm down to do this for as long as I'm on this planet. I'm down to put my energy and commitment towards this. So that means that there will be times when you're really struggling and I pick up the slack, and there will be times when I'm really struggling, and there might be times when you're the breadwinner, and there might be 20 years later, I'm the breadwinner, or maybe like someone close to me in my family dies and I need to take a year off of life. And to like process that, and keeping tabs is like, it's not in your best interest because really this long game is much bigger than that.
In my observation, it's having the awareness and the openness to zoom out and see like that part of the team. Like, even though we're self-employed, and that's inherently being very self-focused out of necessity for what the business and what the career entails, but like, being able to zoom out and really feel like, I'm saying like heart feel versus mind feel, that your success is my success, is our success. What can I do to make this happen? And it's a win no matter what it looks like.
And two things can be true. You can be really passionate about wanting to support each other, and that can still be really hard when it's happening.
For sure. And you can voice that it's hard and be like, I am okay with this situation. I just need a minute to like express the challenge of this, but that doesn't mean we need to change anything. I know we're almost at the end and I want to be super mindful of your time. One question I really did want to ask you, if you feel comfortable talking about it, because we've had 80 some of these conversations, and I've realized a lot of people, a lot of creatives and writers have different belief systems of how much they share in their work and then share on their platforms and everything. And one thing I've really admired is how much you've shared in your songs as well, of your process of losing your mother, specifically while becoming a mother. I'm curious if that has just felt like a natural extension of course, this is a part of how I process. I shared in my email to you that my mom didn't pass away, but she had a massive stroke when I was pregnant with Georgia. She was, for all intents and purposes, gone for a long time. And it's been now 3+ years, and it feels like she's just now starting to come back, but still she can't travel. Has physical disabilities, and she had a severe brain injury. So that specific experience of losing a mother when you're in that time of transitioning to motherhood is one I'm really deeply attuned to and aware of, and have appreciated the way that you've shared. And I've wondered, what are your thoughts in relationship to that? If you've ever felt like, how much do I share? All of those kind of questions, or if it's just, no, of course I'm going to do this.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, that must have been really disorienting and so hard to be pregnant and to sort of need your mom more than ever and have that going on. During the creative process of this album, there were steps. First, it was grief, which is so hard to process, and it's so messy. And ever since I was a kid, I've always processed messy stuff through art. It's like a natural space for that kind of messy thing to exist, because it doesn't need to necessarily be organized or clear. It can just spill out and you can move it around and find your way. And art started to come out of it naturally. And then it wasn't until later, from conversations with myself and with my husband and with my manager and friends and stuff, that it was like, could this be an album? And once that question was there of like, could this be an album? Then there's the implication that it will be shared. And that was the first time that it was a little bit scary to me. It's one thing to put it into existence, but the idea of people then taking it in as a body of work seemed so strange to me. This is so honest and messy and self-focused. It's like me. It was stuff that I'm feeling. I was a bit maybe insecure about the sharing, people taking it in and feeling it's too much. But I had to keep coming back to this reality that it has to come out of me. It can't stay inside. I won't survive that. It was just too intense to like keep that grief in. And so it needs to come out. And I'm doing this anyway. And I can always decide later to not share it. But I'm going to just finish the process of making it. And then maybe I'll test it out with some audiences and see what reactions are like. Or I'll just put it out, and people don't like it, then they can listen to another record of mine. Like try not to make it too precious. And try not to make that part of it too self-focused. So be self-focused during the art creating, and then don't be so selfish during the releasing of it. It's like, it's not about you. Yeah, I think that answers your question, that it was definitely like the most honest album that I've ever made. And this room is a guest room now, but it was where I made the album, and I called it the womb room because I had a palette on the floor and golden lighting everywhere, like salt lamps and stuff, and some soundproofing that I'd made out of quilts and curtains and pillows. And it was very cozy and calm in here. And I gave myself full permission anytime the grief was too intense that I could lay down and rest. I had to tell myself every day, multiple times a day, that that is part of the work and that it's okay, because there's sort of a guilt that comes from the lull in productivity. And I had to say, nope, this is part of the work. Songs can come from here too.
That's beautiful.
And during that time, I'll just add, my dear collaborator and close friend David Crosby passed away as well. who, by the way, used to say you can tell if there's a Virgo in the room by putting your glass all the way at the edge of a table so that half of it is hanging off the table. To see who walks up and moves it back on.
Yeah. I can verify that I would be that guy. Yeah.
Excuse me.
I wouldn't even say excuse me. It'd just be in conversation.
The arm keeps coming up. So he passed away during that window as well. And with him, when he died, as I was grieving him and I was missing him like hell, which I still do every day, but it wasn't the same like messy, ugly grief that needed to be processed through art. If anything, him being on the other side, I felt that he was even closer to me through the creating. I could feel him in my hands and in my head. And there was something about losing my mother, and I think something about the mother-daughter relationship that is just so much more confusing when you lose that. And every relationship is different, and mine was not easy. So it was like there was a lot to process and to write about.
How has it felt since having it out in the world?
Good. I think that the process of making it was so heavy that now it's just, here's this thing I did. I'm proud of it. I'm ready to move on to the next thing, you know. But it's felt good to play the music and people's reactions. I mean, everybody comes from a mother, whether they know them or not. We all have mother figures. We all come from a mother. We all, if we're lucky, outlive our mother. And so this theme of losing one's mother is universal. And even if it hasn't happened, like you said, you can relate to it in other ways. And so it's been something that at every show, I've had somebody come up to me with tears in their eyes and be like, that moved me. So that's been special.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested in, after that like intense period where you made your womb room and accepted your creativity however it needed to show up without shame, if that's influenced your creative process now.
Definitely. I feel drawn to I've never done transcendental meditation, but something in the zone of a really meditative style of work where I'm not in control at all. And then I can always like organize it later. But from this record, I feel like I trust even more this idea that the art is just there and it's our job to show up and open the door and let it in. The more we can surrender to it, the more we can get out of it.
The word channeling comes to mind when I hear you say that, removing the self and removing the conscious or subconscious editor as it's coming.
Well, thank you so much for giving us your time and speaking pretty deeply about a lot of stuff.
I feel like we have so much in common. And even after all these years, we haven't seen each other in 15 years or something. And
I know.
It's just so nice to talk to you guys about art and parenthood and everything in between.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you for taking the time.
It's great to see you both. Thank you so much for taking the time to support this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Becca.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Hey, real quick before we wrap up today's episode, it takes a lot to produce even a small show like ours. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider taking a minute to check out our Patreon. There's a lot happening over there, all with the intent of growing our community and offering you more resources to navigate a career based on your art more sustainably. You can learn more at the link in the show notes below. Thanks for being here with us, and we'll catch you next time on the Other 22 Hours podcast.